Konnichiwa. This is the Shogunstein, and this is some initial thoughts and kind of how to play, and just some other thoughts on the solitaire game Ace of Spades from Devir. It's basically, if you're familiar with the what do they call that, the stream, where the kids get their games these days, the stream. You know, on the stream, there's a poker hand game called the bar log that a lot of the people play. So Ace of Spades is basically a variation of that. I was showing the game to little Shogunstein, and right away he's like, that's just like Beto on the stream. And I go, yeah, it is. So it's a game where you're beating bosses. It's a Western-themed game. And you're using poker hands to do it. So if you're familiar with the biatch game on the Steam, it's a similar concept. Now, before I get into the game, I got to address something. When this game initially came out at one of the big gaming conventions, this game was all the hotness, including some very prominent reviewers all reviewed the game and were giving it like flying colors, some big channels. Then it was noted, and I really, was not an issue that I paid too much attention to, but in the original version that you can't find anymore, there was some questionable card art. Now, the art itself is very nice, but there was some questionable stereotype in the original art. And initially the game got very good reviews, but after all those good reviews, when some people noted the art, all of a sudden this was like the worst game ever. Now again, I really don't know much about the art, and what eventually happened was Devir pulled the game. My issue with all of that is two things. And again, from what people have told me, it was some pretty questionable things, some racial stereotypes. But there are two issues I want to just address before I get into the game itself. And again, this edition is the revised edition. Those cards were removed. It was enough of a big deal that Devir, despite that this game was getting accolades and it was selling out at the convention, they pulled the game. That's how questionable the art was. But two things. One, in board gaming, there's certainly The Boy Who Cried Wolf, with a lot of themes and box art and issues with the A1. So when you do get something that's legit, and again, for them to pull the game and redo it, sounds like there were some legit concerns with the art. So when you get all these hysterical people on the blue sky who complain about all different kinds of, basically they just want you to have a game where there are like dog sheriffs and cow farmers. That's what I want you to be able to have. So one issue I have is that there is so much crying wolf in terms of quote unquote problematic art and themes, that when you actually do have something that really is problematic, sometimes people might not take it seriously at first. So let's make sure that when we have issues like this, that it's a real issue. It sounds like with the original version, it was a real issue. But there are just too many hysterical people in board gaming, unfortunately. Two, the thing that's more interesting to me, because again, Devir pulled the game, they changed the art, so that's up to Devir. And that's not, I'm not here to review the art of the game. But the second issue that I have is that there's a whole question then about these reviews, because the art was bad enough that Devir pulled the game, redid some of the cards, but somehow some of these big review channels that were boasting how great this game was never mentioned the art. So then I have to question, how much did they actually play this game that they missed art that was so problematic that the publisher pulled the game and redid some of the cards? So then it makes you wonder how much are they actually playing games that they're reviewing, or just the whole review process, because they were giving this game flying colors, great reviews, and somehow they missed. And again, how did they miss some art that was so questionable that the publisher pulled the game? So that makes me question the whole review process. But that's for a different time. I'm not here to get into the art. This is the revised edition that doesn't have those cards. So again, it's a Western themed, it's a solitaire game, and you're using poker hands. So again, it's kind of like the biatch game on the Steam with the poker hands. It also reminds me of another Western themed game, and that is the Flip Town. Because if you play Flip Town, which has a Western theme, there's a mechanic where you can score some extra, sheriff badges with poker hands at the end of a round. So basically here, you're using poker hands, and they give you a nice little chart here in case you're not familiar with poker and how everything works. How many, damage they score on the bosses. Now, before I go any further with my thoughts on the game, I do suggest that you watch my buddy Board Game Bullock's very thorough review of this game. And he had some very strong opinions on it that I think are very warranted, and you should definitely check out his video. I don't know if I don't think my conclusions were the same as his, but his is a great channel. It's probably the last honest board game review channel in board game social media. So I highly recommend that if you're thinking of this game, you can obviously watch my video, but definitely watch his video and get his take. And then just make sure you check out his channel. His channel's great. So what happens is you're going through the bosses, and you got to defeat the bosses with your poker hands. So they increase in difficulty as you go through it. And there's a nice amount of different cards in the game to, switch out different villains. Also, you can play with some different rules to make it easier or more difficult. We've been playing with the normal rules. So I guess that's sort of like average difficulty. There is a way to make it tougher. There's a way to make it easier. But what happens is, you're going to get the boss. They got 5. If you defeat the card, you will get this, and then you'll have a one-time use of a power, which will make your hands stronger. Some of these will have an infinity sign, which will go down here, and then that's an ongoing power, because again, these are going to get stronger. Now, this next card, which is going to be the next villain when we flip it, tells you how many shots you get at it. So in this case, we're going to have 2 hands. And then we'll also have the ability to either discard some cards and draw up, or reshuffle the deck, and we have 2. And this changes as the game goes on. You see later on it's 4. So, and then this symbol here tells you that you're going to be, at the beginning, you're going to be, when you see this, you're going to be doing a reshuffle. So in this case, again, we're trying to do 5. We're going to get 2 shots at it, and we have 2 chances to, again, either discard or, reshuffle. And again, we're going to have to play 5. So we're going to play, our hand is going to have 8 cards. We're going to have a hand that we put out is going to be 5. So again, these are based on poker. So again, a simple pair is only going to do 1 damage. You get up to 5 or a kind. There's straight flush. You're going to do more. Jack, queen, or king gives you extra points if it's part of the scoring combination. And then ace gets you +3. So these give you more points as long as they're part of the cards that are actually doing the damage. Because again, you have to put 5 cards down. So again, if you're technically, let's say you're using 2 pairs, which is 4 cards, you're going to have to take a 5th card that you're going to discard. Then you're going to draw back up to 8, and then you're going to go again if you haven't defeated the boss. And then you're going to go through the deck until either you win or lose. So I bought this off Amazon, $25. What are you getting? You're getting a deck of cards. It's a nice deck of cards. You're getting this, contraption to keep score, and you're getting the boss cards. So, not terrible. Again, $25 in board gaming is, $25 isn't necessarily cheap, but for board game, it's not bad. Again, you can play the beta version on the computer. I don't know how much it costs to get it on the stream, but $25 isn't bad. And I imagine that you could probably find this used fairly easily. Also, as again, there was a lot of hype for this game when it first came out. So again, if you have access to a used game market, I'm sure you'll be able to find copies even cheaper than that. So in terms of the price, I don't think the price is bad. And to be honest, I've only had the game a couple days, and I've played it a lot already. So what do I think of the game? My initial thoughts. Again, I like that there's, you got different combinations of cards you can use. I like that there are different, settings that you can have in that, make it easier, make it harder. So there's definitely replayability here. Now, spoiler alert, my buddy Board Game Bullocks, he hated the game. He said it was one of the worst games he played. And I can see why, because ultimately it's poker hands. So you're not reinventing the wheel here. And again, if you have the Steam and you got the beta game, you can play it that way. So it's not anything, groundbreaking here. And again, they've turned the whole game into a mechanic that if you have Flip Town, was just a little mechanic at the end to get, a couple extra, sheriff's badges when you're doing the end of round scoring. Now, my take is going to be a little different. And again, these are initial thoughts. Maybe in 3 months I'm going to have, different opinion on this. This is based on, I've had the game a few days. I played it a bunch of times already. So that tells you something right away. That if I get a game to the table that often, that's a good sign. But you got to understand my situation here. I have a side hustle in history when I'm not a award-winning YouTuber here. And I don't work over the summer. So I'm stuck in the house. And I also live in the desert Southwest. And it's 110 degrees outside. And other than going to Wahlberg at F44 and walking the dog very early in the morning or late in the evening, there's not a lot to do. So I'm stuck in the house when it's 110, 115 degrees outside, and it's kind of boring. So with that said, this is a game that keeps me busy. I'm also not young. I got a 54-year-old brain that needs, some stimulation, needs some, I got to get some nootropics. When I drink a drink, I got to have nootropics. So it's a good exercise because, again, ultimately what you're doing is you're just trying to get poker hands to try and score the most damage within, again, how many, shots you get to take. So it's really math. It's very mathy. It's very puzzly. You're trying to, again, you're trying to make the most efficient hands. Or, again, do I want to discard cards? Do I want to reshuffle the deck? So it's keeping me busy. So in that respect, it's a good game. It's a game that I'm enjoying. But again, I'm stuck in the house and I'm watching a lot of TV. I'm trying to do, I don't know what those things are called with the words and the pages. I'm trying to do a little of that. But I'm trying to, keep busy. So in terms of keeping busy, it's good. If I wasn't stuck in the house, and if I wasn't trying to keep the mind going from getting too old here, maybe it would be different. And again, I'm going to compare this to another solitaire game that I got recently, and that's the Hercules and the 12 Labors. This is another game that's ultimately, to be honest with you, it's not a groundbreaking game. You're just rolling the dice. I'm over here now. you're rolling dice to, try to defeat the laborer again with dice combos. It's kind of procedural and again, mathy and just kind of killing time. It's not, a very thinky, okay, let's play this deep game. But again, stuck in the house, it's something I need. So I don't know if that makes sense. So if you're in a position, I think if you're in a position like me, where you're kind of bored and you don't want to watch TV and you don't want to, I don't know, what is that thing called with the paper and the words. So I enjoy both of these games for what it is. It's a way for me to kind of occupy myself, not be, what do the kids call it? The doom scrolling on the phone, because what would I be doing otherwise? Watching police body cam videos, watching, playthroughs of games, the news. Who wants to watch the news these days? Very, sometimes very depressing. So, how much TV, how many times can you watch Backrooms or Obsession? So it's a good way to keep me busy. So I hope that makes sense. Are any of these great, groundbreaking games? No. So I understand, Hercules, I think Dice Tower gave it like a 6.5. I understand that. I understand my buddy saying that this is one of the worst games he's ever played. I completely understand that. But in the position that I'm in, again, looking to play a solo game, a game that is going to keep me occupied for maybe a half hour in between something else, keep me out of the heat. Both of these games, the Hercules and the Ace of Spades, are doing that job. They're filling that niche. Now, again, if I have other people around or more time, obviously can do a bigger game. In a previous video, I showed Zona, which is a game I picked up used, and I was doing solitaire Zona. That's a big game and takes up the whole table, and there's a lot to it, and there's, I love it. It's a great game. I'm glad I picked it up. But setting it up, getting the whole thing going, sometimes you just want to be able to chuck some dice or, make some card combos and keep busy. This way someone maybe does a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword puzzle. So I'm enjoying the game for what it is. Are either of these great games? No. But when it's 115 degrees outside and you don't want to sit on your phone, or, there's only so much soccer you can watch, or only so many, movies you can watch, it's a good diversion. So I think that if you want a game that's a good diversion, that, again, is stimulating, gets your mind, because again, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get, now in this case it's 5, but what happens when at 25? What happens when at 30? How am I going to work these combos? So long story short, I'm enjoying my plays of Ace of Spades, even though it's probably not a great game. $25, yeah. If you're going to pay full MSRP, to me, it was worth it. If you could find this for 5 or 10 used, absolutely. But again, you got to be in one of those situations. If you live in a climate where, in the summer you can go to the beach or you can go hiking, obviously that's a better option than playing Ace of Spades. I wish I was up in Flagstaff. I'd go be hiking every day. Take the dog out, walk every day. I'm not. It's 115 degrees outside. We got the haboob, the monsoon. So being inside, good option. Those are my thoughts on Ace of Spades. This is the Shogunstein out.